Hello, everyone. I'm Lenny Pinna, and I'm the editor of this book, A Face from Uranus, Correspondence between Tedd Burr and Henry Bellamann, 1943 to 1945. I'm also the screenwriter for the limited TV series In the Name of Jamie Wakefield, Too Pretty for a Boy. I'm about to embark upon reading Episode 3, Part 3, which is a very pivotal scene. It's actually a scene that I first performed live on stage, it's book presentations as well, in the Uranus 3 presentation, which is also on this channel. This is now a time when Ted and Henry are going to meet in imaginative space. You may have noticed in the last episode, or the last part of episode 3, that Ted and Henry have begun to enter into each other's worlds in sort of black and white apparitions. But this time they are going to meet mutually in space, and it will be a full color scene. So we're going to pick up with interior of Ted's bedroom, night. Ted, dressed in his pajamas, lies on his bed with an open book on his lap. He stares into space. He decides to go to his desk. He sits in front of his typewriter. He takes a sheet of paper and scrolls the page into place. He types. We hear the voiceover. Dear Mr. Bellamann, here I am home again with many games of solitaire facing me in the coming weeks. I miss not having my novel to work on, and I suddenly feel it is difficult to read. It is always like that. Either I read constantly or not at all. Cut to Henry's bedroom at night. Now awake, Henry gets out of bed. He puts on his dressing robe over his pajamas and exits to the hallway. Cut back to Ted's bedroom. Ted types. We hear voiceover. I wait breathlessly for your letters since it seems so an impossibility that you bother with me. It was that conversation between Drake and Jamie that made me turn to you. I felt it must have come from some experience of your own. It was so true. Cut back to Henry's study at night. Henry sits in his chair reading the last of Ted's manuscript. He takes off his glasses. He has a very serious look on his face. He glances at Ted's Uranus photograph. He gets up and walks to his desk. He pulls out typing paper. He puts his typewriter in front of him, and with a determination, he rolls the paper into place. He begins to type. The words are typed as he speaks. Henry's voiceover. My dear Tedd Burr. We dissolve back to Ted in his bedroom typing the words, I am one of dreams and moods. We now dissolve to this imaginative reality, and a sound fades in, and it's a piano playing Debussy's Nocturne. This is an imaginary great hall of arts and science at night. A handsomely appointed great room with two grand pianos on opposite sides of the room. Surrounding the room are shelves of books and photographs, paintings and sculptures. There is a sensuous upholstered chaise lounge on one side of the room and an imposing high-back upholstered chair on the opposite side of the room. Heavy burgundy-colored floor-length curtains cover unseen windows. A camera on a tripod, a world globe, and a human skull are also present. The room is lit sensuously. Ted, dressed in his silk pajamas, enters from one side. Henry, dressed in his pajamas with dressing robe, enters from the opposite side. Henry carries Ted's framed studio portrait. Ted begins to saunter about. The scene progresses as would a filmed stage play likened to the period works of Chekhov, Ibsen, and Strindberg. Ted. I am one of dreams and moods, Mr. Bellamann. I try to be rational and honest in dealing with myself, but when I am of dreams, a chance name or thought may send me into wild, imaginative trances. I lie down and close my eyes. I am not Tedd Burr. I am a beautiful woman, desired, loved, cherished. Shall I ever be loved? Loved by many in all shadings of love? He looks toward Henry. Or could I but lie in one man's heart, as tragically as he lies in mine? Henry observes silently. Ted leaps up and thrashes about. Ah, but what impossible sentiments! If only I could control myself! I know these dreams aren't practical, but you are. So it is a battle between you and my dreams. I swear, there is a big me and a little me. The big me is wise but weak. The little me is young and tantalizing. Henry turns away. Don't leave me now, Mr. Bellamann. Yes, I am dramatizing. I shall laugh in a moment. No, I don't want to laugh. Perhaps it is just the suspense of waiting to hear what you have to say about my novel. I said to you in the very beginning that I am not a physician, nor a psychiatrist, and I am not attempting to usurp their function. At first it seemed to me that you do not require either. Today I am not so sure. Henry holds up the Uranus photo. I suspect that this is Sidney French, the protagonist of your novel. Yes, it is. I don't think Sidney French is who you believe him to be. Anyone this ill-adjusted to his environment makes everyone around him equally ill-adjusted. I exaggerated Sidney's worst qualities for dramatic effect. I didn't write about Sidney French because I like to write. I thought if the novel had any dramatic possibilities that I could play Sidney French, and that might be the start of a unique acting career for me. Listen, Ted, I'm an old man, relatively speaking. I've lived a lot and I've seen a lot. I can only talk truth to you by hurting your feelings worse than any surgeon could ever hurt you. If you can take it, if you're strong enough, it may be good for you. If you feel it is not the right comment for you, you are free to reject it and go your own way. Up front, I must tell you that I knew Jamie Wakefield personally. He was a good friend of mine. He was quite talented, but he missed all boats, and the latter days of Jamie were not pretty. With all due respect, Mr. Bellamann, we are not talking about Jamie Wakefield now. We are talking about Sidney French. So then, let me talk about Sidney French. I'll start with the obvious. There is no such world in which Sidney French could ever exist. Perhaps if there were a world where there were three sexes, Sidney might pass. But there can never be such a world. Why can't Sidney rightfully exist as a fictitious character in the world of a novel? Even in the world of fiction, Sidney would be considered an aberration in society. Your Dr. Gordon was an aberration in society, and yet he existed as a character in King's Row. Let's stick to your novel. I think your main problem with your novel is that you have not put on paper what I imagine was in your mind. You said that the Frenches were in the top echelon of society, but in effect, you have presented the Frenches as nothing more than a lower middle class family with the worst breeding and the most outrageous manners. I wrote about society as I see it here in Bellevue. Yes, it is merely a masking, and the people behind it are fairly low class. However much you may have drawn from real life, the book entirely lacks reality. Most of the characters are paper thin, and their talk is completely artificial. I can't imagine any really thoroughbred person putting on the pure, snobbish talk of the Frenches. Fine people are never haughty. Only false pretenders are. Do you think people are genuinely nice? I think they can be fairly nasty. I caught the Frenches with their pants down. Maybe once upon a time they were a beautiful family, but they've had their day in the sun. Now, behind Windy Hill sits a family coming ever nearer to its extinction and death. Also, I find the musical setup incomprehensible. You claim Sidney was a talented and discriminating musician, and yet he was overly concerned with Debussy's Clair de Lune. Henry moves to his grand piano. Clair de Lune has only a slight poetry. It's not representative Debussy. It's not even good Debussy. I met Debussy once in Paris. He dismissed Clair de Lune as a sugar plum, pas important. Henry begins to play Debussy's Preludes. Why couldn't Sidney have played the Pagodas or the Magical Preludes? Why are you picking apart Clair de Lune? I love that music, and it makes no difference to me whether Debussy cared for it or not. I do, and so do many, many other people. Ted crosses to the other piano and begins to play Clair de Lune. Henry stops playing and eventually crosses to Ted. Most people don't know those other compositions you mentioned. So if I put Clair de Lune in my novel and readers can hear it in their imagination because they are familiar with it, then that's enough for me. Then there are the colloquialisms which are completely out of place. Only in vaudeville would one speak of a great pianist as a talent. Sidney was not a great pianist. If only he had the goal to become a great pianist, what a brilliant career he might have had. Still, when playing Clair de Lune, Sidney could still dream. Ted, the boy you portrayed is not just a fairy, and it's spelled F-A-I-R-Y, not F-A-E-R-Y. That's something else. He is also a fool. He demanded attention and approval from everyone, and then he did everything to lose it. And the attention he did get, he hated. I know Sidney is a fool. I wrote him knowing it. I think Sidney is doomed, which is why I ended his life. The story of Sidney French is pure escapism. It is a retaliation against society and is dreadfully catty. In fact, this book's only value is that it is a pathological document. It is the frank exposition of a sick psyche. Even in the world of psychiatry, which is not surprised by anything, this boy is a sick boy. All of his actions, every one of them, are actions of hysteria. I think you may have done yourself a fine service in writing it. It is now out of your system. He walks away. Ted rises and follows him. Why are you critiquing Sidney as if you're critiquing me as the author? I told you I wrote Sidney as a means to an end, as a part I could play in the drama. You cannot wish to be like Sidney French. You cannot sanely wish such a life or such an attitude. I'd rather see you shredded by German machine guns than grow into someone as freakish as Sidney French. I only wish to play Sidney as an actor. I must say in all honesty that it has no possible chance at publication. From a literary point of view, it isn't any good. From a psychological point of view, it is a glimpse into the heart of an inferno. Isn't your opinion just one man's opinion? No, my opinion is not a personal opinion. It is a professional opinion based on professional training and experience. It is a literary judgment. Just like I know bad piano playing when I hear it. Henry walks toward the bookcase. Ted observes. Henry regains composure and addresses Ted again. Your biggest mistake is that you tell far too much. Sex situations cannot be handled so roughly. This kind of writing has been confined to the bottom shelf of distasteful literature of very little importance. Ted darts toward Henry on the offense. Fine, that's all I want, to make some money and get a start. My book may not be good, but look at these. He runs his fingers across the shelves of books. I think many of these are pretty awful. Why shouldn't I take a chance and give it to a publisher? What I have been trying to say without hurting your feelings is that you do not write well. It is the very fabric of your writing that I think is immature and far from ready for any kind of publication. I recall only one sentence that stands out. Each day he swore there was no God, each night he prayed. That's a fine sentence. It is strong and dramatic. Henry moves to sit on a chair, breathing deeply. I have to conserve my strength because I'm still recovering from a severe illness a couple of years ago. I have a tricky heart that doesn't permit me stairs or even to pick up a suitcase. So when I take time out for this, I am doing it out of friendship. Please don't fight back unnecessarily. Ted stands quietly before Henry. I'm truly grateful for the time and effort you make for me. Ted, I have a certain amount of experience in life. I know certain things. I would not tell you anything that isn't genuine. When I am in doubt, I say so. Ted kneels at Henry's feet, looking up at him. I'm selfish, Mr. Bellamann. I don't want you so ill that you can't continue to help me. Your friendship is the most beautiful thing in my life. You got to believe that. We are two fairly sensible people, aren't we? Don't you think the best friendship is a completely honest one? So please understand when I say that your opinion is just that of one man. I respect it tremendously. But perhaps someone else should knock me down. I expect you to be hard-headed about a lot of things. It's all right if it can be combined with a capacity for learning. If you have no further use of my novel, could you return the copy? At this moment, I feel that I must at least submit it to some publisher. If I didn't, there may always be the question of maybe what if? Would you like me to make some notes? Yes, I would love to have your notes. I shall wait breathlessly for them. Henry slowly rises to leave. In due time. I am a busy man. Ted rises. I pray that I do not lose you by this. You know, if you wish me to stick around to see what we may work out for you, you must not be resentful. Ted thrusts himself forward, draped over the chair. If you only knew how much I want you to stick around. I am not resentful. No, not a bit. I'm just so thankful. Henry slowly walks toward the doorway. Over his shoulder. I will send you a grumpy photograph of me as a scolding present. Not quite. I don't scold. Henry exits. Ted slides down into Henry's chair. Oh, I sigh with relief. Oh, Mr. Bellamann, you are a light. That is the end of the scene, and it's going to be the end of this segment of episode 3. I just want to point out that, as I said, that Ted and Henry started to walk into each other's lives. This major scene between them is the beginning of where they will continue to integrate into each other's lives more and more. They'll just be in each other's spheres. And so you can see that the relationship is integrating and their psyches are integrating. And so if you have any comments or questions about this or any of the episodes and how they relate to one another, feel free to make comments down below and we'll have a discussion about them. So once again, thank you for joining me, and we'll see you next time for part 4 of episode 3.